I've started giving a talk called Lean Hunting, and I think I'm going to actually start giving a talk this year at different conferences, something around like just calling it Lean Security or something. But
Okay.
It's again kind of applying entrepreneurial mindset around how do we get more with less? Like how do we squeeze more value with fewer headcount or with fewer tools? Now it seems like most organizations can get enough budget to get some tooling and some headcount, sometimes quite a bit, but it's still, whether you don't have the tooling or you don't have the headcount, usually you're missing something, right? So how do we get more out of that? So I think to start with, it's okay, what do I have in my possession now where if I just squeeze a little bit more value out of the logs going into a SIM or to Elk or something like that, what can I do with it? Or if I just write this extra little script that like automates the deprovisioning of an account through PowerShell or something, it actually saves time because we can do that much more quickly than the way we do it now through IAM or whatever, right? There's all these different ways. So I think it starts first with just a mindset and an approach of like this hungry, like I'm going to build, I'm not just going to like analyze data. I'm going to be an engineer in security. That's, by the way, that's the number. I've talked to probably 800 organizations now through Carbon Black and Obsidian. And the number one difference between the best and the, we'll say not best, is are you approaching everything from a more engineer perspective, or are you just approaching it like an analyst that's just looking at data and reports? So if you can start to shift your team or your organization to more of an engineering mindset, that's going to give you a large return. The other thing is blend open source and commercial.
Okay.
So maybe in certain areas commercial is way better, or it's just way easier to manage or whatever. Okay, cool. Like go do that. But there's other areas where maybe, like for example, you throw data into Elk, or you use OS Query, or you do these different tools that have actually made a lot of progress where you can still improve your team or your environment without a lot of spend. Now, when I talk to other new vendors, the problem a lot of vendors think about is they only think about cost in terms of financial cost. But you, and I'm sure all the listeners, realize that there's the time that you're going, that as a practitioner, that you're working with your procurement team to get that tool in-house, the time you're trying to work with IT to get a server to install something, the time you're actually going through training, that there's so many costs, right? So you have to figure out how all that works together. And then the last thing I'll say, and again, I could keep talking about this, is coming back to something we just talked about a few minutes ago, which is, do you have existing tools, or does someone maybe in another team have existing tools that would help you do something better? IR, hunting, policy management, whatever, that maybe wasn't designed exactly for your problem, but you could use that and squeeze that value out of it. So, I think there's a lot of opportunities to win here, but mostly it starts with that sort of philosophy and approach around how can I get more with kind of what I already have. Yeah,
engineering mindset, but also collaboration with other departments and stuff.
There's one other thing I want to say. Yeah. Here's one more thing, which is a little bit different because you said collaboration. If some team just went through months of like retooling and building out a nice tech stack and building some playbooks and whatever, can you learn from that? Like in another company, can you learn from that team? And conversely, if you just went through that, can you share that? We focused so much because there was such a need to share like threat intel and threat feeds and IOCs and whatever else you want to call them, like intelligence. Can we actually share what's working and what's not from a tech stack, from a tooling perspective, from a, just sort of an approach perspective, how we operate, how we build out our security program? Because someone else just spent months figuring that out. It might not be perfect, but you can learn from that. And their months of effort, you talk to them for an hour, you might have absorbed a lot of that, right? So we got to start sharing more of the approach, the guiding principles, the tech stack, and not just focus on things like threat intel.